All right, everybody. Well, welcome to our IRIS-hosted career fair. My name is Katie Jimenez. Some of you have met me from conferences or from outreach or received emails from me to invite you to this career fair. So welcome to everybody that's on today. We will be recording, just a couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording this and we will be sending this out after the webinar is completed. But I do want to let everyone know this is recorded. We will be monitoring the chat box, and there will be a moment at the end where we'll be answering all questions. If for some reason your question was not answered, we will definitely provide our email address at the end of this call to make sure that you get any specific questions answered. But please go ahead and use the chat functionality on the toolbar to go ahead and submit your questions. So with no further ado, we're going to go ahead and kick off. And I am going to go ahead and introduce everyone. So on this call today, we have Dr. Tracy Muller and myself and Dana Foltz. She is the Director of Clinical Talent, and Dr. Muller is one of our medical directors.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
And I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Dana. She's going to talk about the company at large. She's been here for a really long time and really has some good insight on how we got started and how we came to be where we are today. So Dana, go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you so much, Katie. And it's exciting to virtually be able to meet, interact with each of you today. And thank you for your time. So as Katie had said, I have been with IRIS about 5 years. It will be going on that here at the early of 2023. And we are a company that has certainly grown, but there are things that have stayed the same throughout my time. And what really drew me to become a member of IRIS as well, and that is, good medicine is the heart of everything that we do. We are founded and owned by Dr. Tariq Shaheen. He is now on our board. He is no longer a CEO, but that is really the core of who we are here at IRIS, is just that we value our clinicians. The clinician experience and the patient experience is paramount to us. It is what we really achieve to have be quality. If we're working towards a larger project, it's thinking about these bigger things. And we really want to select providers that share that mission with us and are passionate about the work we do. What you see here is a picture of our little yellow house. This was the beginning of IRIS, and where our corporate started was in this little yellow house. Now we're, of course, national. We are all over the country, and all of us are working remotely right now, as our clinicians, but it's kind of cool to see the beginnings there of what you see within that picture. Just to give you an idea of where we are currently at, our company profile, right now we have 300 medical providers, and so that includes psychiatrists, PMHMPs, and LCSWs. Like I had mentioned before, we were founded in 2013, and we continue to be a physician-led medical group. Right now, currently, we have 237 service lines, and those include partnerships in 33 states. And I know a lot of times people will ask, well, how long do these partnerships last? And our goal is really for it to be, into the future for a very long time. Our current length is 4.25 years, and to me, it really is to go beyond that. When we talk about opportunities with our clinicians, it is what we call that happily ever after match of finding a good IRIS home, that it is a work environment that you want to be in for many, many years. And our clinician satisfaction right now is 96%. And I know sometimes when you hear that number, it's kind of like, wow, it is an impressive number, but I want to know some more information behind that. And we are happy. I think there's a lot of discussion that can go within that. We're going to have a Q&A today, but it is really the heart and soul of what we do, putting the providers first, putting the patient experience first. And I think it really equates to that clinician satisfaction.
Absolutely. And Dana, I just want to piggyback on, really, we are matching. We're a medical group, we're TJC, accredited, and we are really focused on long-term matches. We are not, a agency, staffing agency, locums group. We really love what we do, and we really strive for that happily ever after match is what we call it. We jokingly call ourselves matchmakers.
Absolutely. So life at Iris, is our focus? It's 100% behavioral health. That is where Iris's focus is at. We, like I said, as far as who we work with, it's currently psychiatrists, PMHMPs, and LCSWs. Our goal is to have satisfaction of the providers that work for us. And so that is always a target that we have in front of us and are looking at to see a measure of how we're doing, but is equally the patient satisfaction. So you can see those numbers there, 96% and 97%. And then, a quote from Dr. Romero, who has been a clinician with us since 2018. And I think that is an experience that we pride ourselves in as that clinician goes through implementation and then through their career with Iris, is that your interaction with our corporate employees to support you is always very positive. We are looking to be solutions based and provide the proper support so that you can do the work that you need to do. And I know I mentioned again this before, but just the providers that we currently work with: psychiatrists, LCSWs, and PMHMPs. And I think within that, what our discussions are with each of you as we look at the match is what your clinical preferences are within a setting. And so we are wanting to know, when you're looking at working remotely through telehealth, what are you looking for in regards to the hours, schedule, the setting that you want to work with, and anything specific to the patient population as far as ages or diagnosis, volume of patients, appointment times. These are all discussions that we have early, and I say often because I know as you learn more about us, some of your preferences can be fluid with that. So our goal is to really understand that as you interact with us and we do what we began on that matchmaking process, so that you can really achieve the goals that you're looking for. What you can see from the quote there from one of our, again, longstanding PMHMPs is that work-life balance was a major reason that she was looking for a change and came to Iris. And she is not unique in that. That's a common comment that we hear as people, begin to look at Iris and a career with us. And that is important to us as well. And so I always tell people, we get very granular sometimes with the details that we ask as we interact with you, but it is really to truly know what would be sustainable for you long-term in a career. And let us know. And as you learn more of us about us and that changes, let us know as well. But we really want to understand, when you're looking to make that transition of a job, we understand it's an important one. What does that job need to entail? And that's the work that we do on our part to see what type of match that we can do on our end. And then I think it goes, why Iris? What is the support that we provide on our end? And of course, there's the technology piece, the equipment, but the tech support behind that, that's 24/7 on our end. We offer CME credit, malpractice insurance. There is a lot of behind the scenes support that goes towards our providers each and every day. The paperwork that you would have to do to get up and running, we really want to take a bulk of that as to what we can do as far as the licensing and DEA. That we have an incredible MSS team is what we call them here, but I always say there are kind of our superheroes behind the scenes that do a lot of the work to make that as good of experience as possible. I feel like paperwork and licensing and EMR are one of those things that, like, if we can just really support that as much as possible to make that a better experience for our providers, that's really our goal. We're psychiatrist led, and I think that just goes back to being very clinically focused on what type of work we're placing our clinicians in and being mindful about the support needed once placed in those positions. Work-life balance, such a conversation that we have time and time again. So many people are looking to transition to telehealth because that's really a goal of theirs. And we want that then to be a goal of ours. So I think that comes into the details of a position that you would want and really being mindful of that as we make those matches. And we have great benefits here at Iris. If you are working 30 hours or more at Iris, you receive all benefits that include health insurance and 401k. And it really is just a great package. And we'd be, again, happy to share that additional information with each of you.
Yes, and that's a good call out, Dana. We can actually, with this video, send out our benefits overview.
That'd be
We
great.
do pay for full-time employees. We do 75% of premiums as well for yourself and any dependents working. Thank you so much, Dana. So
You're
I'm
welcome.
actually I'm going to go ahead and hop in here and actually talk about opportunities at Iris, the different settings that we're operating in, and then we'll talk about our core mission, vision, and values. So we offer adult and pediatric careers in acute care settings. This is what we call our on-demand setting. We really focus on care pods that will fully wrap the patient in the health system. And we're really focused right now on our acute care needs. And the really cool thing about the acute care needs, I know for me, I was a physician practice manager for several years. And the hardest thing for me, one of the hardest things for me in my career was getting in touch just with the treating physician or the charge nurse over at the ED. That was a continual pain point for us. So here at Iris, we actually have the telehealth care coordinators, which we abbreviate as TCC, and they really act as your liaison between the ground operations and yourself. So it's really, really cool the way that we work. We also offer ambulatory care. For this, you'll be assigned a clinical operations manager, which is what we know as a COM. We love our acronyms here. And what they really focus on is making sure that they're liaising between yourself and the clinic that you're placed. And something that's kind of different about us in our outpatient service lines is that we really are different in we're not that direct to consumer care model. We're typically partnering with a brick and mortar location as their telehealth arm. We are a medical group, like I said earlier, so we're not necessarily looking to replace in-person care, but really support that in-person care through telehealth, meaning that you'll be completely remote, but oftentimes your patients are actually coming in to get seen. So we have new and innovative care models. So as part of this provider team, you'll be involved in our referral management program. This will be helping patients transition from crisis care to stabilization. We're really focused on bridging the ED and acute inpatient gaps to manage care and into the home. This program works effectively to prevent just unnecessary readmits and also get people out of the EDs faster. That's really a big push of ours right now. So now let's talk about our core values. So what makes us super different? So we know that we're not that direct to consumer model, but what else makes us different? And I would have to say definitely our values. Our values are what form us and our decision making. And I really love Iris's core values of people over all else, suck less every day, execution is queen and king, be quick but don't hurry, and love your work, live your work. And that's something that's really personally very important to me. And we'll go into these values in much more depth in just a moment. So people above all else, or people over all else, we value our relationships with employees and organizations over all else. Acting with integrity and respect, we do the right thing no matter what. Our people, both internally and externally, are our competitive advantage, and we prosper or fail based on the strength of our teams. And this is really, I really liked listening to one of our founders describe this when I first started, is that people over all else is the foundation that our house is built on. So if there was like the most important value, this is it. And because this drives all the rest of our values and our decision making. And who are the people? The people are us. The people are Iris. The people are our clinicians and providers that are delivering care. But at the end of the day, we're really focused on excellent patient care. That's the really big benefit, I think, of working for Iris, is that there's a group of medical leaders that are driving our business decisions. I know that's a novel concept for a lot of you on this call. And I'll go back to my time as a physician practice manager. There was always that push to do more with less resources, see more, bring in more. We really frame everything that we do under this lens of people over all else. Are our decisions, really in the best interest of all those parties, being self, partners, and at the end of the day, most importantly, our patients. So suck less every day. This was something coming from a big corporate environment and a big health system that I was like, oh, that's interesting. But it is one of my favorite values because what it says really, it's a journey to excellence. And I've got to take a sip of my coffee in my very cool Iris mug. So to us, suck less implies that each of us has greatness within, and if we dedicate ourselves to continual improvement. So it's, acknowledging that we have shortcomings. It's acknowledging that there's always room for improvement. And so, I'm sorry, guys, I've been sick. So suck less every day, we call these sled moments. And so whenever we have like a process improvement or, anything that we need to address, we're always like, this is a sled moment. And it turned out to be like one of my very favorite values here. Execution is king and queen. So this is kind of, one of those things that's pretty self-explanatory. But having great ideas alone does nothing, right? We have to actually be able to deliver on our ideas. We believe that dependability is key to trust in relationships, and we do what we say we're going to do. It really is that simple. Like, if we say we're going to uphold something, we make sure that we strive to do that thing. And we try to do these things very well. And I think we've gotten really good at what we do. Be quick, but don't hurry. Fun fact about me, I am speedy, speedy, speedy. I am always working very quickly. But what does that mean, be quick, but don't hurry? That means, we are running at a high pace with our rapid expansion. All of us kind of have that feel of, urgency. But we don't want to work so quickly that it sacrifices quality or care. That's something that's very, very important to us here at Iris, is the quality of care. And the way that we achieve good quality of care is, once again, having medical leaders drive our business decisions, like I was speaking about earlier. It's not an easy task, but it is one of the things our partners and providers love most about working with us. So if there is an issue, you can expect us to have a prompt response, but we're also going to take enough time to get it right the first time. So this is something I say every day, and this is my own personal mission as well, is love your work, live your work. So to love your work is to be passionate. We do our best on every task. That is a small reflection of ourselves in each action we take, and because of this, we put our hearts and souls into our work so we can be proud of the results. To me, when I joined Iris, I was lucky enough to be referred by some longstanding members that work here, and teammates that work here. And, something that I found was I was so attracted to the fact that they seem to really love their work. And the reason is because we are so provider oriented and provider focused. And once again, going back to me being a practice manager previously, that's something that was really important to me. I really wanted work that I felt good about. And we have a huge focus on serving underserved communities. And that was something that I really wanted to do, in my career, and make sure that this was a reputable organization. And luckily, I was able to vet it through other people who had been here for a while. And when I joined a while back, I mean, I really just have to say I love what I do. At the end of the day, we really are saving lives and we're affecting lives. We reach so many patients. Our placements result in so many patient visits that might not necessarily have happened without our platform to, get into those underserved and rural communities that might not have really good access to care. So this was something that was very personal to me. And I hope that everyone on this call who joins us really finds that they can actually love their work and live that work. And at that moment, I don't see that we have any chats at this moment, but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tracy Muller. She is absolutely phenomenal. So, what questions do y'all have about us?
And
I
while we
can,
wait for those, Tracy, I didn't know if you wanted to just give a little bit of your background and how long you've been with Iris and
I was
well,
definitely going
questions
to
open.
offer that and piggyback off of some of the things that I completely have found to be true in my experience at IRIS, both as a clinician and now working more administratively. So I'm going on more than 3.5 years. I was calculating as we were talking. I can't believe it's almost 4 years at IRIS. And I started in a clinical role. I was applying like everyone else. I had done some research on IRIS, was looking for improved quality of life, was had a young daughter and commuting more than 2 hours a day and really needed to make some changes. And from the first interview I had at Iris to where we are today, I have found everything that people are talking about today to be true in terms of commitment to people first, delivering high quality patient care. I'm a child psychiatrist. I started in a clinical position in an adolescent residential center and had a fabulous experience. And I got to know Iris as a clinician first. And then a little bit before the pandemic, I pivoted to an administrative role as the medical director of ambulatory services. And it really wasn't until then that I really got a good understand or a better understanding of the work behind the scenes that made my clinical experience so wonderful. There's just so much that goes into researching clinical settings, understanding our potential placements, and making sure they're places we want to work before partnering with them. And then, there's all the work that goes in making sure you're happy with your placement and it's for you. And then the ongoing, Iris doesn't stop there. You have people supporting you along the way. If there are any issues, concerns, IT, you name it, Iris is running in parallel with you 24/7 whenever you need them, which has been um, incredible for me to understand more as I'm working more administratively. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the perspective of clinician or administrator about IRS because I have had a wonderful experience and talk about the details with any of you. It looks like
And I
some
don't see,
questions
are you seeing questions? I don't know if it's just my view.
coming in through Slack.
Okay, perfect. So, Dr. Muller, what is the value that resonates with you the most?
Gosh, I would think people first. And in my mind, when I think of that as a clinician and administrator, I'm thinking people first, and it translates into patient first all the time. It's like a reflex for me to think that way, that Iris is so committed to making decisions based on the person, what's best for the individual, supporting folks so that they can do the work that is can be so hard and try to take all the headaches out of that work as much as possible, like IT, credentialing, just allowing providers to do what they love. So I think that people first allows that to happen. Um, in my role, which started right before the pandemic, every day I saw people on within Iris going to great lengths to make sure that that happened, supporting providers and our clinics, making sure that patients were being seen and there was continuity of care. So I think that that value resonates with me.
So I'm seeing that the chats now. So the first one is curious about documentation expectations and how is the pay structure organized? So I do want to take a moment and I'll answer the pay structure, and then Dr. Muller, you can answer the documentation question. So our pay structure is different. So in our ambulatory services, we are not RVU based, so it's a straight salary. On our scheduled, our acute care side, it is a production-based pay model. And then Dr. Muller, if you would like to answer about documentation expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. We use whatever electronic health record that that the provider uses. So that can be unique depending on the site where you're placed. There is no expectation or assumption that a provider has experience within that health record. Even if you do, sometimes there can be nuances for a particular setting. So there is training with that. And, the expectations are that, the documentation is done by end of day, just as, all the same standards that are obviously if you were working in person. But there is time and assistance with that EHR to get you going. And there is one thing we look for in our settings, that there is a telepsych champion, if you will. So there's always a point person to help with questions within the facility as well as on the IRIS end. Hopefully that answers their questions. I don't know if there were other specifics about
I think you did a great job answering that. And I do want to just say, just to piggyback on your point, that we're fully embedding you with an actual facility. So you'll be documenting, like Dr. Muller said, in their EMR. But you will receive training, and we have a ton of support around that, because our goal is to really cut down all the extra stuff so you can actually go in and love your job and just love what you do and do what you do well. So the next question is there a minimal amount of hours per week that IRIS requires? And I will go ahead and answer that. So we do require on the outpatient side of the house or scheduled services side of the house, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my lingo today, a 16-hour minimum. At 30 hours, it would be considered full-time. And then on the ODS side of the house, or acute care services, that's our term for it, and that would be a 8-shift minimum or 15 for full-time. And then the next one is, can you explain the process of being placed with a position? Also, what if the placement is not a good fit? Dana, do you want to take that one?
Yes, absolutely. So the process of placement, I think the first thing is that we want to have a good conversation with anybody interested in IRIS. I think to give as much information about us, which I know you're gaining today, but then on the flip side is to really understand what your clinical preferences are. And that comes down to, there is some structure around it, like Katie had just mentioned, that 16 hours is our minimum per week. But we understand then from that, what are there particular days that you want those hours scheduled? What time zone are you in? How does that correlate if we're looking at placements across different time zones, particular setting, patient population? We even get into the day-to-day schedule, and that is, how much time do you really want for an initial visit, for a follow-up visit, for documentation and notes? And the reason we ask those questions is that we work all across the United States in different settings and with different groups. And to a certain extent, they do come in all shapes and sizes. And we want to really match our clinicians as much as we can to what your clinical preferences are. So that conversation is had, what we call through our interview process, is to really identify what your clinical preferences are. On the flip side of it, our account managers and our clinical hiring managers are working really closely with the current open positions that we have, identifying what their needs are. And so we really do matchmaking from there. So once we've identified a placement or placements, it could be a couple different opportunities that really align with what you're looking for, we would have you meet with that group. It's called a meet and greet. And during that meet and greet, it really allows you to get all of the details, to know personalities, just to gain as much information about that particular opportunity, to make a really well-informed decision as to whether or not that's a placement that you feel like is really sustainable for you long term. So I know I gave a very top line view of it, but just know that the most importance for us is knowing what you're looking for within work, and then also understanding what the needs are of the different organizations we partner with, and really bringing those together to have a really good fit on both ends.
Yeah, and like when I'm interviewing, I tell my candidates, like, tell me what your dream job looks like, because there's a likely chance that I have that position open, or something that looks like that, right? And I'm like, okay, tell me your dream job, tell me what your negotiables are, and then tell me things that are like deal breakers. And so we try to make sure that we are so mindful. We don't have an algorithm like saying, hey, this person has XYZ on their CV, this is where they go. It's actual humans that are making these decisions, making these connections with you, and really discussing and understanding you as an individual, because we are so provider centric. We want to make sure this is a forever match. And that goes into that value of people overall else. Like, we really want to make sure that our patients at the end of the day are receiving continuity of care, and that our partners are happy also. And then the other piece of that question was, what happens when it's not that forever match? What if we want to, break up? So hopefully we get ahead of that. And that's why that clinical operations manager that's assigned to you is so critical, is to try to keep that line of communication open so it doesn't sour to that point and we can address things quickly and proactively. But should, the clinical opportunity fall through for whatever reason, as long as it's not, something egregious, we will quickly move you to the top of the list to get you rematched. That is something that we'll take as a very big priority, and you would go in a priority list to make sure that we are very mindful and getting you moved along quickly. Okay, so the next question is, do y'all sponsor visas? Not at current time. That is definitely something that we're looking towards, future state, but at current time, due to regulatory issues and just the costs associated, we are not currently sponsoring visas, but that's in my wheelhouse, so I am definitely socializing that and trying to see what we can do there. And then the next one, is there an option to work flexibly from different states? Yeah, so as long as you are, let me take this. Dana, can you grab that?
Yes, absolutely. I was just going to tell you, Katie. Yes. And in fact, that's something we commonly do, is that you are working in one state and you are, remoting in to another state. And so I always tell people that's where it comes down to. Our focus really is on that clinical environment, because you will be working from home. So our priority is to wherever you're remoting into, that what that looks like is the work that you want to do. So it is well worth our time to, ensuring that we are providing the support for licensing, as far as just the process of licensing, but also if we are placing you in a different state that you don't currently have licensing in, that is something that IRIS pays for and compensates for.
And the other really cool thing about that is we do offer for full-time employees, a $1,500 office account stipend. And that can actually, if a different state than where you're living, that can also go to help offset those costs as well. But we'll take care of all your licensing, credentialing, DEA fees, as well as all your malpractice insurance. The next question is, what EMR system is utilized? So yeah, we're just really embedded to whatever the clinic is. But one of the things we ask during the initial call is, what systems have you worked with in the past? Are there any that you would hate working with? Because there are, I know, some EMRs that I would like to avoid in my career, having had, different experiences there. So those are things that we will know up front before we send you to your meet and greet.
And Katie, I'll just, because that is something that is site dependent. So I know a lot of times as we're, having those first interactions, people want to know, like, what does a typical site look like? And it's so hard to say, because when you really are looking at, one site compared to another, they just have their different nuances. Obviously, EMR is one of them, but just, what does their specific patient population really look like? whether it be the age group that they're really needing a focus on, or diagnosis within that they're needing a focus on, the amount of time that they have allotted for documentation, those sort of things all become site specific. So that's where I always go back to, let's start first with really, from your experience, what are your preferences as to what you would like to do? And let's then take a look at our opportunities that are available based upon that.
Thank you so much. So the next one is, and I really love what y'all are doing. Iris sounds like a dream employer. We are. Let's see. I'm wondering if you consider licensed mental health counselors for therapist positions, or do you only hire LCSWs? Forgive me if this has been addressed. I am in Florida, so I am listening in while preparing for the storm. So first and foremost, best of luck to you. I know this is a big one, and my heart goes out to everybody in Florida or on the coast right now. Currently, we only are hiring LCSWs, but the really cool thing about us is that our opportunities are ever changing. So that's something that we could change that in the future at some point. So making sure that you follow us on all social medias, and if you have any specific questions, going and just emailing the talent inbox at Iris, and we can get with you for more specific questions around that and get you into our list of people that we would want to consider if we start offering those types of positions. All right. And then this one I'm going to have Dr. Miller answer. Do you provide medical supervision for PMHMPs? If so, if the medical supervisor is an IRIS psychiatrist or the facility psychiatrist?
Sure. And yes, if the clinical position is in a state that requires a collaborating physician, we absolutely make sure that's arranged. We have it figured out before we even think about placing someone in that position, because we anticipate that need. And majority of the time, it is another IRIS physician. Sometimes it's even within the same team. We love when that happens within the same clinic, because they know the systems really well. But yes, that's absolutely something that we plan for, so that a nurse practitioner does not have to arrange that on their own. And in general speaking, my door and Dr. Carmilam's door is always open for all our clinicians with any questions or concerns. We never want people to feel like they're practicing in a silo. And we look for those clinical sites that also foster those connections. So there's plenty of opportunity for consultation or just chatting with a colleague when you need to.
Yes, and that's something that I always share too, is like it's just such a supportive, collaborative team. And I know our PMHMPs, I've heard through the grapevine that we're very popular on the Facebook groups and the PMHMP boards for that reason, because we are so supportive to all our providers. And I think that once again goes back into our values. So how many states does IRIS serve? We're currently in 36 states and we're still expanding. So we really focus on making sure that we're meeting everybody's needs. And so as a need arises, we get opened up into that market. Let's see. Can you speak more about the productivity portion of the acute care salary? So that would be something that I would want to dive into. It's very nuanced. That would be something I would think would be more appropriate for a phone call, because it has so many variables, and I don't want to misspeak or misquote on pricing around that at all. Dana and Dr. Miller, do you have anything you want to add there?
Yeah,
I know
no,
that's a very ambiguous answer.
no, I would defer, for more details about that piece. But for the ambulatory care, I'll reiterate that that is not a fee-for-service model, because a lot of our providers come to IRIS wanting that predictability in schedule and pay. So if they're, we look at our settings to make sure there's enough patients, obviously, to warrant consistent work. However, there are always going to be no-shows. You're not dinged for that. That time is yours to do other work or take a break or take a walk. So it's a consistent model. But for the acute care model, I will defer to independent conversation that is more nuanced.
And I'm sorry about the ambiguity there. We just want to make sure, like, something that's really important to me as a recruiter is I don't want to misguide anyone. I don't want to mislead anyone. I believe that the reason I'm a successful recruiter is because I am transparent, very upfront. But that's something that the cool thing about us is when you get into the interview process, we'll give you a comp quote immediately. Like, you will not leave that first call not knowing. And that's something that a lot of people will say, thank you so much for that full transparency, because we like to make sure that this is the right fit, that we're not like going back to agency work, like we're not that. We are really looking for that right fit, and we know that compensation is a huge part of that. So we're not going to mislead you in what your pay would be. We're going to be very upfront with the benefits packages, and the process really. Okay, so I'm going to say the average starting salary for full-time, both in acute care and outpatient. That would be something I would want to defer to more of a conversation, because it's going to be experience-based, population-based, state-driven, and all those things. And y'all, I'm sorry, but you will get a price comp quote before you move forward in the process at all. We like to know that information up front, because we too want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by you and by our partners. And if it's compensation that we cannot meet, we'll let you know right up front. And then, there's always some wiggle room too for negotiations. So does Iris Telehealth support the licensing process for MSWs beginning their, oh, it just moved, beginning their path to becoming an LCSW? I can go ahead and answer that as well. So I'm the outreach manager. So my job here is to really focus on people still in training programs. We are not currently supporting that model. However, my recommendation would be to go ahead and still schedule an outreach call with me, so we can talk about what that path looks like for you and like what your timeline would be. Because we don't like to send out like, sorry, but no thanks, like just canned responses to people that are applying. I like to talk to people, because when I hear, a repetitive theme or a request like, hey, it would be great if you guys offered that, I then, because we're so dynamic, I'm able to then go present that as like an opportunity that we may be able to expand into. So my recommendation there would be going on our page, and under the career resources, you can click to actually schedule directly with me if you are not at that point where you're fully licensed as an LCSW, or if you're a PMHMP with less than 2 years experience, because there are some times where we can waive that experience. So I like to really understand you holistically, and also give you next steps, as well as paths to continue to interact with us. We do a lot of happy hours and things like that, virtual. All right. Do we have a sense on how many of the places where Iris contracts with have non-competes? So I can address that too. So we actually will not have you sign a non-compete except with the facility that you're practicing at. So we really are pretty open, even if you're working for a direct competitor of ours, which there are very few direct competitors, because most people are in that direct to consumer space in our telehealth world. But we actually don't have non-competes except with the facilities that you are practicing with. I hope that answered.
Yeah, I can mention too, because I get that question a lot in interviews about the non-compete, and we do have a lot of providers working for us part-time and do other things with their other hours, which, we are fine with. We love that patients are getting care, so that there's no exclusions there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that we do that. Like, we really are, like I said, we would rather people to get care. And that's at the end of the day, that people overall else, like, we really want our patients to have good access to mental health care services. This is something that is a critical mission of ours. And that's the benefit of being formed by a child and adolescent psychiatrist. Like, he really took that into consideration when he started this company back in 2013. So I've got another good one. So what roles does Iris offer for someone with a BSW and clinical management background? So we have a lot of folks that actually work with us that are like comms and things like that, that are like myself, ex-practice managers, and have, you know, a lot of behavioral health experience. We are currently, I know right now, looking for a physician scheduler. So if you know anybody, please email directly to us after this. Our focus on this side of the house is really those clinical roles, but we would be more than happy to talk to you as well about our non-clinical roles, our support roles. We have a lot of experience on our team. Yes, Dana.
No, I was just going to add, and with us, our focus being on clinical, we will connect you with our corporate side of the house that does recruiting there. Absolutely. So just reach out to us and let us know, and we'll make the right connections.
Absolutely. Yeah, we work very closely with our corporate recruiting team. All right. Anybody else have any questions? And I've got one for you. Dana, what does the licensing and credentialing process look like?
Absolutely. So what we do at first to start that process is called our e-apply. So that's our internal credentialing. So our MSS team is what we call them, but they will work very closely with you to gather all the information that is needed. And I know Tracy just mentioned this, is we really try to do the lion's share of the work that we can do, so that we are going to have to, you know, obviously gain documents and sometimes fingerprints and stuff like that on your end. But as much as that we can take on ours, our team will do. And that's just part of our process, because again, we recognize that licensing and credentialing is just part of our work. And in order to be as efficient as possible, we need to try to take on as much work. So you will have a touch point with that team member to really get you through that entire process. So we're really there to support you. And just as far as like timelines, I know that's a common question that we get, you know, how long does that typically take? And we are still at a point where it is just state dependent. So that's, you know, where we come down, well, where is the location you would be remoting into? What does that particular state look like for licensing, and the timeline for credentialing at that particular group or organization? So that does become very specific. But again, as we want to be as transparent as possible, once, you know, you have landed on a group that you want to work with, all those timelines would be laid out, and you know, we would be updating you throughout the entire process as to working towards that timeline to get that licensing and credentialing complete.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dana. And, you know, I think it's so funny because, you know, I've worked with credentialing teams, you know, for a long time now. And it's very rare that when you're hiring physicians and providers and clinicians that, you know, the feedback is, oh my gosh, this was so smooth, and that we're rated typically on our surveys. This is one of our highest areas that we do well in. And a lot of this, right, it's a team effort. So however fast you can be, we can move fast. So it's in that be quick but don't hurry vein of our values, and, you know, just working collaboratively with you to make sure that we are removing all those obstacles and barriers and that we have in place. And we are, I mean, just a phenomenal credentialing team there.
Yeah, I can't say I agree with that enough. And going through the experience of being credentialed in a new state for my first position at Iris, they made the process so painless, coached me through it's just phenomenal. So I cannot say enough about our credentialing department. They really are experts in what they do because they're doing it across the country, and they will give you feedback throughout the process. So they're amazing.
And I know this wasn't a question asked, but I'm going to throw out, I'm going to say the same about IT. Like, having round the clock IT support to me is critical. Like, I got locked out of my Office Google account yesterday, and they had it unlocked within, I think, you couldn't even count the seconds. It was so quick. And just, you know, I've worked in large organizations where it's like a constant issue with technology, and making sure that things work. And here, I have had very few IT issues because we're pragmatic and we're practical and we're forward thinking to try to prevent those things. But also, when something does go wrong, which is almost always user error, like with that Google issue, somebody forgot their password, and it had to be reset by the admin. So, um, they're so quick and responsive. And I have to say, special shout out to our TCC team on the acute care line. I mean, they are, they're our unsung heroes. We do sing their praises quite a bit because, when we're on vacation and PTO, they're working overnight to make sure everything is, running smoothly for our providers that are providing those services. And that just goes to our real focus of making sure that you have all the tools that you need. I know there's a lot of discussion around like provider burnout and work-life balance and company culture. And for us, it's more than just reading those values. It's like, how do we act? How responsive are we? What processes are in place to make sure that your life is easier, so you can go in and provide that care and do the job that you love, that you went, to school forever for. And that's really what we exist for.
Mhm.
And then I have one more question, which is, how do I apply? So this will kind of bring me to the wrap up. So to apply, you can always go onto our Iris Telehealth site, and apply directly there. Or you can go ahead and just email our talent inbox directly, which is talent at Iris Health. Ugh, I can't speak today. Talent, please. Oh my gosh, y'all. Talent at iristelehealth.com. Luckily, I'm a pretty goofy person. Don't take myself too seriously because I cannot speak today. But that would be the best way to get in touch with us. Are there any additional questions before we close and a wrap up, or any additional comments from the panel?
Now, I think you all have summed up what I have experienced at Iris as a clinician and as administrator very well. One thing I keep thinking about is the question that someone had about what if it doesn't work out? And because I remember, you feel like you're taking that leap of faith coming to a new position, and providers have put in so much of their efforts and energies into their previous position, and it can be really challenging. But that's why the conversations that are had at the beginning pay off so much down the line, and finding that great clinical fit. That's what we consider success, is that long-term connection. And our providers are also looking for that right provider that wants to be fully integrated into the team. So I think that the work at the beginning really does pay off. And I so appreciate everyone taking the time today to hear more about it.
I had one more question just come in. Do y'all supply collaborative physicians, and can you be a 1099 employee? So I will answer
Yes,
the 1099 question. Yes, you can work on 1099 or W-2.
excellent. And the collaborative physicians, absolutely. When we're scoping settings, we have in mind those states that require a collaborating physician, and we arrange that. It's generally another Iris physician. We love it if it's someone on the same team, but that, yeah, absolutely is something that we make sure to take care of.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And thank everybody on this call. Thank you guys all for joining us, especially if you're in Florida. Oh my gosh. And like I said, be super safe. Check in after this. Just let me know you're safe. But thank you all. And we will emailing this recording out to everybody that is registered in attendance. And if for some reason you have any direct questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to our talent inbox, and we will be prompt in answering your questions. We value being quick and not hurrying. But thank you everybody for attending today. Have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys.